here that we're calling Three Things You Must Understand. And we've been working on the first one of these three things for the first 5 programs, I think, so far. And sorry it's taken us so long to get to the next one, but this is important. I mean, our origin, where we came from, is probably the fundamental thing that human beings need to understand. And it's been a question every generation and every individual in every generation asks this question. Why am I here? Where did I come from? How did I get here? And we've been looking to people that are often called scientists, many of them falsely so called, for the last 150 years or so, for the answer to this question, where did I come from? Well, I began to talk a little bit last time. We were talking a little bit about our adventures up in Washington at the Natural History Museum. And you remember, if you were with us on the last program, we talked quite a bit about Archaeopteryx, which was supposedly the transitional form between reptile and bird. And they had the fossil there. We talked a little bit about the coelacanth, which is supposed to be the missing link or the transitional form between fish and amphibian. And I don't know if I made that clear last time, but the main point that I kept making over and over again, and I talked about, if you remember, the fact that they had many fossilized frog that was in formaldehyde downstairs was identical. I mean, identical to the 180 million year old fossil that was upstairs in their fossil exhibit. They had the maple wing that was just gotten right off the ground, I assume, and just pasted on there. Modern maple wing, I've got them all over my yard. And then they've got a fossilized maple wing there that's supposed to be 20 million years old. You can go there right now and see all these things. I'll tell you what, going to the Natural History Museum, or any natural history museum, I'll tell you just take a few minutes about our North Carolina. We're here in North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, down in Raleigh. We also have here in North Carolina a Natural History Museum. And there's the greatest evidence for creation in these natural history museums, although the interpretation of the evidence is all atheistic evolution. But if you just look at the evidence, God is manifest everywhere. They're complex, they're fully formed, there are no missing parts, they're not about to turn into something else. You know, the evidence is everywhere. Here's something here. I was looking through this, our little photo album, and this has just been a few weeks since my family and I were up there in Washington. Here's the little rat. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there's the rat that's supposed to be our farthest away ancestor. Well, you know, where did the rat get his eyes? You know, we're still back to the same problems. We talked about a long time the eye, you know, several programs back. Where did this rat get 2 eyes? Extremely complex eyes. Well, they couldn't evolve because evolution itself says that if something a mutation begins to form and it is of no value to the creature, then it's eliminated in the next generation. So how do you get a rat with 2 eyes and 2 ears? See, things like that make absolutely no sense. But look at this. You see this? I'll read this for you. This says touch. This is in our taxpayer money, by the way, in the Natural History Museum in our nation's capital right now. You can go and see it. What this says right here, touch a long lost relative. And here's a little squirrel monkey. And that may be Lindsay's, my 9-year-old's hand right there. He was about to touch that thing. So anyway, there it is. Touch a long lost relative. I mean, this is laughable. If it wasn't so serious, we'd be laughing all the time about this stuff. But here it is, you know, Natural History Museum. Look at here. We're talking about fossils a little bit. We went to the Chapel Hill where they have the planetarium. If you've ever been there, we went in there and saw a great program. It was great from the standpoint of being impressive. But it was evolutionary. I mean, the point that they were trying to make repeatedly was that all that was necessary was the right chemicals to come together, and poof, here we are. Now they would show slides, they'd flash slides up on this huge, you know, other than the stars and all the other things that you might see at a planetarium. They would show slides of different things, and Sadie my daughter was sitting there right beside me, and I said, Sadie, what is that? And she'd say, well, that's a fern. And there was another one, what is that? Well, that's a crab. What is that? Well, that's a dragonfly. Well, what's that? Well, that's, you know, and she could name every single thing on there. So here's the point. Now here's some fossils that are supposed to be millions of years old. This is, I think, from the National Geographic as well. What is this? Can you tell me what that is? If there's any children out there watching me right now, do you know what this is? I know you know what that is. It's a dragonfly. Do you know what this is? Well, you may not be able to see that. That's a frog skeleton. You know what that is? That's a fish. You know what this is? This is a bee. So all of these long lost, fossils that are supposed to be millions of years old, how is it that we can identify them all and they look just like the things, if they're not extinct things like some dinosaurs, or perhaps all dinosaurs? I'm not sure about that, by the way, but let's save that for another program. But if they're not extinct, you can identify them. Well, we went to here's some more, by the way. Here, look at these. Now, these are in amber. You know what amber is. It's amber. This, you know, sap comes down and comes over an insect, and it becomes crystallized in that amber. Does anybody know what that is? Do you know what that is? Well, it's obvious. It's part of a praying mantis. Well, he's supposed to be, you know, according to this National Geographic, millions and millions of years old. Here's a spider in amber. Here is a termite in amber. Well, why is it that we can identify all these things, the fossils, the insects in amber, and they haven't changed any? They're still here. Now, this is one of the most, I have to tell you about this. And Tristan, I want you to help us with this one. My son here, we were in the Natural History Museum in our North Carolinas, there in Raleigh, and they had a dolphin. Tristan, I tell you what, you can tell this story while I draw this ridiculous looking thing. You remember this?
Yeah.
All right, come up here and just tell us about this. What did you see there when one of the exhibits that they had in our museum there in Raleigh, North Carolina? Go ahead.
We were just going through this Natural History Museum in Raleigh, and one of the last exhibits that we saw there, just walked into this room, and there was a nice, normal-looking dolphin, slick, shiny, and smooth. You know, your average dolphin, made out of, I don't know, some sort of plaster or something,
probably, yeah,
up on the wall. And out of its side, where a fin should be, there was this dorky-looking, hairy wolf paw with claws sticking out of it, just in the contrast to this nice, you know, shiny, slick dolphin. And it was really, really stupid looking. And it had these little pictures with some text in them showing how this here wolf went down and he couldn't find him enough food, so he went to the edge of the water, and so he kept getting farther and farther in, and then somehow he grew fins, and then he swam off and lived in the water from then on.
Yeah.
And it was just, you should go see it. It's really dumb.
Yeah, it is. It's dumb. That's the truth. But this is kind of this is not a very good drawing, perhaps, but you know, this is where the fin should be. If this was a dolphin, and the fin should be right here like an ordinary dolphin. Now this is supposed to be an extinct dolphin, but I mean it looked for all intents and purposes like a dolphin, porpoise type of creature. But it had this paw sticking out, and just like Tristan said, it was ridiculous. They're ridiculous looking. But they didn't have any, there's no evidence